What's up, guys? Welcome back to Between the Pylons. I'm John Camacho. Thank you so much for watching. And guys, today we are talking about the Arizona Cardinals draft review. First one I am doing on the channel. I am doing every single team. So if you are interested in just your team, hey, check that out. If you're an Arizona Cardinals fan, don't know what I'm about, and you're just kind of watching this because I'm talking about your team right now, I'd really appreciate the subscribe. Talk football all the time, talk draft all the time, and I'm a growing channel, been growing a lot lately, so I would really appreciate the sub if you're interested in that kind of content. Let's get right into the draft. They had a really interesting draft with some big names, right? I'm going to put up on the screen the entire draft list here. Obviously headlined by Zaven Collins. Everything that we've seen since the draft has taken place is that Zaven Collins was their guy from the beginning, right? Zaven Collins was the dude that they were really wanting and that they were really targeting at 16, assuming that the cornerbacks weren't going to be on the board. Cornerback obviously being kind of a big need for the Cardinals. Weren't able to get one of the top two. I think 16 would have been a little early for like a Caleb Farley, who ends up going to the Titans a little bit in like the early 20s. Caleb Farley has those injury issues, which is why, you know, mid first round, right at 16's definition of mid first round, that would have been a tough trigger to pull. Makes a whole lot of sense that they go Zaven Collins, linebacker of Tulsa, who is just absolutely awesome. I think a lot of people expected him to be another one of those like late 20s type of guy. Like I had him mocked to the Saints, and I certainly didn't think he would go ahead of like a Joker. I especially said that on draft night. I was very surprised by that, but it makes a lot of sense. Hey, they got their guy. We're talking about a guy who has a great size speed combo, you know, freak athlete, all of these things. You know, I worry about his pass rushing skills, yeah, but I mean, you know, he's an outside linebacker. He doesn't really need to do that at a high level. And I will say the biggest issue for me with Zaven Collins, like when I was watching the film, was just like Tulsa's defense is weird. Like I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a 1-3-7 front, and I had to look that up after watching it or after starting to watch the film, because I was like, man, I don't know what they're doing. Like, I don't know. And that's just my naivete. Like, that's just inexperience for me, and I'll just own that altogether. So when I watch it, I was just like, okay, freak athlete, but I don't know about like the technical side or like what he's supposed to be doing. Like, is football IQ just out the window? Like, what's going on here? So there were moments of that where I was confused. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm perfectly comfortable admitting that. But you know, obviously the Arizona Cardinals got a lot smarter people than I am in the building, and they knew what they were doing with a Zaven Collins pick here. Hopefully this pick works out. They've gone to the well at linebacker a handful of times in recent years, especially in the first round. Hassan Reddick comes to mind just a couple years ago, just now went on to the Panthers. So he just got a second contract. So that wasn't that long ago. And then obviously Isaiah Simmons, we all remember from last year, who definitely underperformed a little bit to what I think we were expecting. I just think he was one of those things where I don't think they really knew what to do with him at first. But I mean, he made a handful of plays. I remember he got that game-sealing interception versus Russell Wilson in the Seahawks that one game, like a Saturday, or it was like a Sunday night or Monday night game. It was a great game. So like, you know, I think they're working a lot with that defense, and I'm a big fan of Vance Joseph. I obviously didn't work out as a head coach, but before he was a head coach, he was the defensive coordinator for my Dolphins, and I was a big fan of his. He always was able to take the talent that they had and elevate. So I'm really excited for him to just get these athletic specimens at the linebacker position, and he'll figure it out, right? Okay, Isaiah Simmons had a slow start. That's fine. I'm very excited to see what they can do from that front. Moving on to their second pick, Rondale Moore falls in their lap in the second round. And I mean, there's no other way to say it, but just, I mean, explosive, dynamic, impressive. All of these things. Like, we kind of know what he is. He's a guy that has been on a lot of people's radar since 2018, since that 2018 season where he just had like mind-boggling ridiculous numbers, and he was ridiculously explosive, and he probably would have been like a top 15 pick if he had like been able to keep up that type of production, that type of explosiveness. Well, he had injuries. He had issues like that for the past 2 years. It wasn't the same because of injuries and other things like that kept him off the field. And I think that's really the only reason he fell into their lap in the second round, and I think it's just one of those things where it was tough to pass up. And the only negative thing I think you can really say about this pick is, you know, I would assume, just looking looking at the way the draft board fell, looking at probably the biggest need for the Cardinals, I think that's corner, right? Corner, they lose Patrick Peterson to the Vikings. They bring in Malcolm Butler from the Titans. They do have Byron Murphy, their second round pick from a couple years ago, that he's a starter, but I mean, he's just, man, like, I don't think he's a special talent at this point. I think he's still developing a little bit. So you look at corner as certainly a pretty big need, and I think they were watching this draft board. I think Asante Samuels, he goes 2 picks ahead of them to the Rams. I think if he was there at 17, that probably would have been the pick for the Cardinals. Other than that, there wasn't another corner that went off the board until the middle of the 3rd round, and there just wasn't the value there. So you either trade out or you take the best player available, right? That's what they do. I think Rondale Moore, a great pick. The only thing you have to look at, okay, what are you going to do at corner? Well, wait until around the 4th round. Their pick's coming up. They trade up with the Ravens. They are able to land a Marco Wilson, and also was able to bring in a 6th round pick, which they spent on another linebacker in exchange for a 5th round pick this year and a 4th round pick next year. Pretty good draft value. Obviously, giving up a 4th and a 5th, but you get a 6th back, and you still pick your guy. You at least got, I think, the next guy that was on their board, and I think there's probably a big drop off as far as like positional need and everything else. You get into that 4th round range. Hey, you got to take your shot. Hopefully they can get some work out of a Marco Wilson, and he can at least get into the fold and maybe become a starter next year. Obviously, they can at least manage this year. I would say you have 2 guys that can start. It's certainly not a deep position for them right now, and definitely I would expect going to be one of their bigger issues coming into the 2021 season. So overall, let's break down this draft as a whole, and I'm going to do it in a little bit different way. First of all, I do want to talk about the best and worst move. Best move to me was that trade for Rodney Hudson. I know that happened a while ago. That wasn't a draft night thing, but to me, you spent a 3rd round pick plus some change, but you spent a 3rd round pick on a top 5 center in the league. To me, you get credit for that in the draft. Like, to me, that is understanding the value of what a 3rd round pick is and getting far more than what that is. So that's a huge win in my book. Worst move, and listen, this is nitpicky, but I do think they probably could have traded up for Asante Samuel. You have your division rival take him 2 picks ahead of you, and I love Rondale Moore, and I think that was a great pick, right? So I'm not hating on that pick at all. I do think, obviously, the corner was probably a bigger need than wide receiver. You can probably get by with what you have at wide receiver. Certainly some depth issues there, and that was filled for the most part. And obviously, listen, hindsight being 2020, that's just kind of the nature of this critique. It's very minor. You got to love what you got, but just looking at it, like, okay, you could have probably probably spent your like 5th round pick, maybe a 5th next year or 4th next year, to go up and get an Asante Samuel. Instead, you spent a 4th next year and your 5th this year to go up and get a Marco Wilson. So, like, obviously, I think you probably would have spent less overall to go up 2 spots in the 2nd round, 3 spots in the 2nd round to get a much better player. Obviously, you would have lost a Rondale Moore. You would have gotten an Asante Samuel instead. So it's just one of those things. Very nitpicky thing, I understand. But those would be my best and worst move. And so here are my grades for the draft, and I break my grades into 3 different categories, right? So first of all, the players you got, based nothing else, right? Just the players you were able to get in the draft, right? I'm giving you a B plus because I do like a Zaven Collins. I personally liked a Joker more, and I just, based on my grade and everything. Now, Joker fell all the way to like the mid-2nd, so I think the NFL obviously disagreed with me, and I think that was kind of a common thing in like fans and stuff. I saw a lot of people talking about that. So hey, that's just my grade. That bumped it down just a tiny little itty bitty bit. I still like Zaven Collins a lot. I really did. I love Rondale Moore. Love the value you got for him, but just the players you got overall, I think it's a B plus. Very, very solid group of guys, and I think you got 2 starters for a long time. And hey, in a draft, that's really all you can ask for, right? Draft value, I'm giving you a B. Just having to trade a 4th round pick next year to go up and get cornerback because you were in a situation where the cornerback, you needed to get one. You could not come out of this draft with no cornerback at any even remotely premium position. Obviously, I know they grabbed a cornerback in the 6th round. Once you get like 223 overall, okay, you don't get credit for that. I'm sorry. Like, I don't grade those picks because those picks very rarely work out. They're just lottery tickets in my opinion. And hey, maybe that's a great pick and maybe he works out to be a great player. I don't know. And then needs a C+, and that's really just because I came in this draft not really thinking that linebacker was their biggest need. And now they've spent 3 first-round picks in the past 5 years on a linebacker, or 6 years, one or the other. And I don't have a problem with that at all, like that, but just I didn't consider that a pressing need for them. And then I really didn't even consider wide receiver a pressing need. I certainly thought they would grab one day 2. I really did. I didn't think they were going to spend a second-round pick on him, but also I don't think they thought that Rondale Moore was going to be there because he shouldn't have been. He just shouldn't have. He probably shouldn't have fallen outside the top 40, but he did, and here we are. They get him at 49 overall. I mean, you can't beat that value, so I have no problem with that at all. So overall, guys, big fan of the Cardinals draft, big fan of what the Cardinals are doing. The Cardinals are on the 3rd year of their 3-year rebuild. This is the time. This is when we're going to see Cliff Kingsbury and we're going to see Kyler Murray really get into that next gear. I want to see Cliff Kingsbury grow as a play caller and play designer in the NFL. It was very, I would say, underwhelming the first half of the first year that they were together, and then the second half of that first year, he really started to develop and kind of change his scheme a little bit. Started to realize that the 4 wide really just wasn't working with the tools that he had at the time. Last year, I liked a lot of what I saw defensively. Offensively, I liked a lot of what I saw. I thought they kind of, I thought it slowed down near the end as far as like play design. I wasn't watching every single week being like, man, that was just an awesome play. Man, that was just an awesome play. And to be fair, like I'm a nerd for stuff like that, so like I get into that maybe more than most people do. So I just don't listen to me too hard on that one. And overall, I'm so excited to see what they're gonna do. 3rd year of their 3-year rebuild. This is the time. This is their chance. Unfortunately, they just happen to be in the toughest division in the NFL, so that's definitely an unfortunate situation for the team. But man, they've filled most of their holes. I'm sure cornerback will be a concern for fans. I'm sure there are going to be questions about the offensive line here and there. But man, overall, I'm so excited to see what they can do in this 2021 season. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this kind of content. I'm doing a draft review on every single team in the NFL. So, hey, if you don't see your team, subscribe now. I'm going to do it. I promise. I'm going to get to it. I'm doing like a huge, I'm putting in like 18 hours a day until I get all of these videos out. So, guys, subscribe, follow the journey. I'm going to have a lot of great stuff through the real off season. To me, the off season starts now. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Peace out.